While many printers have shifted their focus, Freeport Press has remained committed to the art of print. For companies that need a printing partner for magazines, look no further than Freeport Press. We offer the capabilities a customer would expect from a national printer while offering the level of customer service clients expect from a family-owned business. Freeport Press. We do print, and we do it well.
FreeportPress.com.
We're waiting tables, we're working sometimes excruciating long shifts. And then we spend the rest of our time pursuing something that we really came here to pursue. And we chase that. And it's a very gritty lifestyle. It can be isolating as well. And that's a reason why we started waiting. These stories needed to be shared. These people are such a reason why New York is so magnetic.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Just a note before we get going. This is the 50th episode of The Full Bleed, and I, along with the team here at Magazeum, truly appreciate the time you've spent with us. Waiting is what I consider a perfect magazine, not because of its design or the writing, though both are stellar, but mostly because it functions as a closed loop. How? The subject and the audience are one and the same. Waiting you see as a magazine about creatives in New York's service industry, and it is a magazine for creatives in New York's service industry. That's a neat trick, and also makes me wonder why no one had done this before founder, editor-in-chief, and complete magazine neophyte Adele Blanton hit upon the idea. Adele has done the math. 10% of the estimated 700,000 people working in the food and beverage industry in New York are artists of some kind. Artists, actors, writers, dancers, you name it. And that number is a healthy baseline for any publication. Waiting has published 3 well-received issues already, and now she and the team behind it has to figure out how to maintain and grow the media. That's one of the many things we talk about on the show. Did I tell you this is our 50th episode? Because it's our 50th episode. My name is Arjun Basu. I'll be your waiter this evening, and this is The Full Bleed. Adele, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So, before we get into the actual magazine, what's your story?
Well, I'm from Virginia originally, and I went to school in Boston at Boston College, and I moved to New York the day I graduated school. I always wanted to move there, and I came here to pursue...
Couldn't wait to get out of Boston.
Couldn't wait. No, it's a great place. It was a great place to go to school. It was amazing. So many music venues, so many concerts. I love music, so it was a blast. But I grew up coming to New York. My family is from around the area, and I always knew I was going to end up here at some point. And as soon as I finished up college, this was the move. So I came here to pursue satire and comedy writing in some sort of respect. I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew that that was what I wanted to do. I grew up loving David Sedaris, sketch writing, comedy writing, anything like that. So I moved here, and my parents have a little apartment on the Upper East Side, and I moved into Williamsburg in a couple of months after being here, and I started taking improv classes at a comedy club at Upright Citizens Brigade. Against my wishes. I did not want to take improv, but I spoke to some people about comedy writing and about writing, and they just told me that I had to, get a little bit used to performing and hearing how words were delivered and reacted to. So I took an improv class, and I got a restaurant job on the Upper East Side at an Italian restaurant because I'd always worked in restaurants and I needed something to pay the bills, while I looked for these TV writer's assistant jobs and while I was trying to afford improv classes. So I got that job, and as I was getting further into the comedy world and further into the restaurant world and meeting more people and growing a little bit of a community, I realized how many people around me were working in hospitality or working in service, and were doing so to be able to actively pursue an artistic or creative career on the side. Almost everyone in my improv class fell into that demographic. Everyone I worked with was either a singer or an actor or, an artist in their own respect. And so, I just realized that these people are so vibrant and they're so gritty and determined. I know you asked me to talk about myself, but I'm now
Well,
good.
that's part of the story. And it's like, I mean, these people are also creative, which sort of helps with the next step.
They're amazing. They're amazing, Arjun. They have the most insane backgrounds. And what's so incredible about them is that, and I guess I'm included in this, is that we fall in the same category. We're all in New York trying to make something creative or artistic happen, and we're all doing it in kind of a similar way, right? We have these side gigs, we have these restaurant jobs, we're waiting tables, we're working sometimes excruciating long shifts. And then we spend the rest of our time pursuing something that we really came here to pursue. And we chase that. And it's a very gritty lifestyle. It's a very, it can be isolating as well. And that's a reason why we started waiting. Additionally, is I felt that these stories needed to be shared. I thought that these people, they resemble such a, or they are such a reason why New York is so magnetic, because New York has this uh, reputation that you can come here and you can do anything, you can make anything happen for yourself. And these people are living, breathing examples of the process of that make your dreams come true situation. But yeah, it's an isolating lifestyle as well. And I certainly felt lonely early on, because I would go work at my restaurant job and then I would spend the rest of the time writing or, trying to look for jobs. And I felt alone and I knew that I wasn't. And that's the thing with waiting that we really are chasing, is that we know how many people are like us in the city, and we just want to connect to all of them because they all are the same and so unique at the same time.
So I want to get to that number because you have it on the website in a second. Or no, you have it in a video on the website. Yeah. But
Mhm.
at what point did this happen? Like, what was the flash that said, oh, these people around me are also not just a community, but an interesting subject. And also, then how did you come about going about getting a team together?
So I think about this all the time. It was let me restart. I first had the idea because I was writing these satirical essays every week and posting them on a Substack. And they were just ridiculous things. I would do commentary on a green bean casserole recipe. They weren't grounded in any reality. But I was telling my boss at my restaurant about what I'm trying to do, why I'm here, and we were closing up one night and he told me, you're always here and you're interacting with people all the time. You have these coworkers who have been in the industry for a very long time. I'm sure there are some stories here that you could probably write about. And I think he meant that I could just include them in a blog or include them in what I was doing already. But that kind of sparked something in me. And I had an improv show the next day. It was a class show, and, I was performing the show and then we went out for drinks, all of us in the class. And I just kind of was still thinking about this kind of storytelling, platform that I could make for people like myself. And I mulled over the idea a lot for maybe 2 to 4 months. I went from November to March, and I didn't say a word to anybody, and I didn't say anything because I didn't know how I would ever get it to work. I studied English in college, but I didn't study how to start a magazine in college. So, I had no idea what to do. And I met Elliot Rosenberg in my Improv 101 class. He's a graduate from Brown and RISD. He studied furniture design, computer science. He's extremely talented, very bright. And we became friends instantly. And we started writing together every Sunday while I was kind of secretly thinking about all of this. And I remember one morning we were writing in my apartment and I was working on an essay that I was writing for my Substack. He was selling lamps that he had made at the time. He's insane. And I, just looked up from my laptop and I was like, hey, I think I have this idea. I think I want to make a magazine for artists in the service industry. I think that would be cool. And I think that they would have really great stories and I think I could write them. And I think we could do something there. And I think I want to call it Waiting. And what do you think? And he's very kind of stoic in his behavior. And he just kind of nodded and he was like, okay. I like that idea. That's cool. Can you write it down?" And so I took a red pen, which is now our waiting red, and I wrote down waiting in cursive and I gave it to him. And then he went back to his computer and he fell silent for maybe an hour. And I was just like, "Okay, well, there was an idea that I pitched to my friend and I guess that's it for now," because he didn't say anything. And then about an hour later, he's like, "Do you have a second?" And I looked up from my computer and he turned his laptop around and he had built the skeleton website of the first website Waiting ever had. It looked like an old diner guest check, which is exactly what I had explained to him that I wanted it to look like. And it was really, robust and stiff, but he turned his computer around and looked at me and he was like, "Now you have to do something with this." And it was incredible. It was one of the most amazing moments because I realized if you're passionate about something or if you have an idea, you can find people who are equally as excited. And he was initially going to just help me get the first edition started. We started this was now a year ago. We started the magazine on this day that I'm talking about is March 23rd of 2025. And luckily enough, I had made some friends who, someone I worked with, another person down the street at a bar who were interested in being a part of this. I got to interview them. We included 4 other artists in our first edition. And then, at another point, Elliot said to me, "You love satire so much, you should write satire for this." And so then I started writing little essays about my experience in the service industry that I plucked right out of my shifts. Really, easy to find experiences to write about. And then, we had a cover photo idea for the first edition, and we met a week before we were supposed to shoot it. Elliot was taking our photography, but a week before we were supposed to shoot the cover photo, I met Dylan Gaduri at another improv show after party. He was friends with someone I was in a class with, and he is a cinematographer, videographer, photographer. He's incredible. And he was new to the city. He had just finished the Page program at NBC. And I was telling him about what I was doing because at that point we were supposed to send our magazine to a printer, in a week and a half. And we were scheduling this cover photo shoot 3 days before. And he just reached out to, I met him and I was telling him what I was doing. And he was like, "If you ever need any help, let me know." And so I texted him the next day and asked him if he wanted to meet at the 96Q subway station at 6 in the morning on Saturday. And he said yes. And he's been working with us ever since. And Elliot is our designer. Elliot is our web designer. He does all of our layout. He does a lot of the business operations and logistics. Dylan's shot almost everything we've ever put out, video and photo. And then a little bit down the line, we found some interns to work with who were in college. And we have an illustrator. Her name's Sarah Kanashi Sabet. She's from California. She's so talented. And she's been with us for the last 2 editions. So I don't want to put everything on improv. I don't want to say that this magazine is because improv, but in a lot of ways, it kind of is.
Well, it kind of feels like it because you have yet to introduce anyone to a person who knew what they were doing in terms of magazines. Like none of you had any background in this. So because I'm trying to think of a magazine that feels, at least the finished product, feels so turnkey from the start. Your contributors and the audience are basically one and the same, or at least start in the same place. It's almost like a B2B product in that way, I mean, it's a closed loop. And on the website, I mentioned it. You offer that stat. There are 700,000 people in the industry in New York City, and 10% identify as artists, which is a funny way of putting it. Or creatives, what have you. So your potential base audience is 70,000, which is healthy for anything. So that's like the background. That's the research. And of course, that's 70,000. That's only assuming that people in the industry will be the only ones to care about it, which is not true. So, but no one has put a magazine together before.
No one has put a magazine together before. No one has done anything they've done for Waiting before, ever. I I wrote a lot in college. I wrote a little bit for my school newspaper, but I love writing and I love getting to listen to someone's story and tell it through their voice and hold them well. And I think the biggest thing to respond to what you're saying, which is 100% true, it's that everyone who's ever worked on waiting in our small team are some of the most passionate and humble people I've ever come across. They are extremely talented and they love what they do. Every time, Elliot's favorite part of all of waiting is when he can sit down and lay out the first draft of an edition. Dylan, we have had shoots where we are biking around New York when we have, a shoot with an artist somewhere and then he's filming me on a bike and then we're shooting an artist in a totally different borough and it's a chaotic day and then he can go home and put it together and edit these photos and make these people shine. Sarah will read these satirical essays that I've written and she'll take what she sees and like what we are thinking of and then she'll put it through her own lens. And it really has given everyone to be so passionately dedicated to a concept without lots of experience just because they love it. A lot of them, or everyone has worked in restaurants before. Everyone understands, the creative energy. And like you were saying, first of all, we found that number that you're talking about after we started the magazine. We did no research before this. We were not like, okay, 70,000. Okay, if 10% read it, then that's a viable business strategy. We didn't do a lick of that. We just knew, and we still know, that the population of artists working here in the service industry, and we've since expanded, we call our demographic the working class creative. Anyone who's in New York and is working these side jobs and has this dream of being an artist full time or being a creative full time, or at least being able to have it be a constant in their lives. It's such a, you know, energetic part of New York, and you don't need numbers when you know that. And for some reason, we were all just so sure that we could tap into that community. And you're so right that it is a B2B product because it was so easy to start, really. I mean, it's been grueling, very hard. My hair is probably 50% the thickness it was when we started, but we would go into restaurants with these flyers that looked like guest checks, and it would have an email address if an artist wanted to get in touch with us. And, usually when you go into a restaurant, when you say, I don't need a table, you're like, ugh, this person's going to come bother me. We never had that problem. I got to go, last summer, I would spend days walking around neighborhoods just filling out flyers, or not filling out, handing out, excuse me. And I would walk into a restaurant and I'd say, I'm not here to bother you. I'm here for you. Actually, I want to help you. And if you help me, I can help you too. We grow together. That's the most important part of waiting, or a very important part to me, is that nothing I do or nothing our team does is not without the artists that we feature in mind. We want to be a sustainable magazine so that we can be a source of community and inspiration for this population that is always growing, by the way. It is living and breathing as we speak. 5 minutes ago, someone just probably moved here wanting to be a painter, and they're going to go get a bartending job. And 5 minutes ago, someone probably left because it was too hard to do, or it's always moving. And if we can help that, and if we can be the platform for those kinds of people, then we help each other. We all help each other.
I want to get back to the idea of New York as magnet in a second, because that's part of a larger discussion. But you chose the hardest path to create this community. I mean, I've never said this on this show before, ever, but I'm going to play devil's advocate. Why did you make a magazine? I mean, it could easily have been a website or a newsletter, or, that got bigger word of mouth, and then maybe you became a magazine. But this was a magazine from the start. I can't believe I'm saying all of this. But why? Why did you choose the absolute hardest thing that you could possibly do?
Well, I mean, I'll play devil's advocate right back. Why not? Where else could you?
It's a good question, but I mean, you have to answer mine first.
I know, I'll answer your question. Fine, I'll answer your question. So, I mean, I think the why not starts my answer. And the reason I said that is because, first of all, New York is such a physical place. people dream about coming here, but being here and living here is a totally different experience, and it is, this magnet that we've been talking about a little bit. And the reason why we did print is because we believe that there is a physicality to waiting into this community that is vital. We are now online. We have our articles online. And as we secure funding for another print, we're putting out online articles and obviously social media. If you don't have a social media, you're basically dead. And so we have that as well. But, the fact that you could read in a print about an artist working at a restaurant, performing at a show next week, close the magazine, walk down the street and go see them, that's insane. That's amazing. You can't do that when you're, just online. There's less tangibility and touch to that experience. And the other reason, and I've been thinking a lot about magazines recently because as I'm doing this, I'm learning more about magazines for the first time in my life, which is great. And, when I think about all these different forms of media, like you're saying, online only or video only, or all of these different options that we could have had, why do a magazine? And when I think about magazines that I've loved and that I grew up loving, like National Geographic and The New Yorker, even Vogue, they are these symbols of a character and a personality. And they are these boundaries or world world parameters. And with every edition, they evolve right alongside the world evolving next to them. They are reflections of what's going on in the world, but through the lens the magazine has stabilized and called their own. And with every print comes a new, take on the world right now through the New Yorker, through National Geographic, through waiting. And that is why we really have loved it because, it's hard to put out something online that can really physically resemble a point in time or a place or something. Maybe it can, but it can't do it like a magazine can. And so, it is hard. It was maybe not the smartest decision on the planet. I maxed out my credit card to print the first edition. My parents don't even know that, but I guess that's out there now. And it's not easy. It is not an easy world to be in, and it's not an easy industry to enter, especially with the experience that we have. But we believe that physicality and having a physical presence, just like these people have a physical presence in New York, that is what the connector is. And without that, waiting is something different, and it's not as much as it could be.
We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jeremy Leslie at Mag Culture. We're proud to support The Full Bleed because we love magazines too. Visit magculture.com and see why print is far from over. It's just getting started. Read the journal for interviews and reviews, listen to our podcasts, visit our shop in London and online, and come to our live events in London and New York. We love magazines. Subscribe to our newsletter for weekly updates, all at magculture.com.
Print is Dead is made possible by the support of the Society of Publication Designers. The SPD powers the future of visual storytelling, setting the standard for editorial excellence and shaping the future of visual culture. For more information, visit spd.org.
That is as good as an answer as I could have hoped for when I asked my devil's advocate question.
Well, it's a little better.
No, but why not? You had to start somewhere. So this feels like on another level an anthropological guide to New York. It's about New York as much as it is about the creatives in the service industry, and it's about people who inhabit a certain place. So that makes it a city guide in a weird way, in a very weird way.
Mhm.
But also, I want you to talk about also New York as a magnet, because I mean, the one thing you've heard about New York for quite a while now is how expensive it is, and it's just hard to be a creative in a place where the rent is too high, right? The rent's too damn high. And so how does that enter into the conversation? And is that something that New York might actually look? New York's still a cultural hub, but it's getting harder and harder for the artists to get, as you well know, to get there and stay there and afford it.
I mean, it's a huge part. I think 30% of the time that I talk to someone about waiting and they're over the age of maybe 45, they will talk about the nostalgia that the magazine has and how it's like, "Oh my gosh, you're celebrating the artists in New York. Like that's so, that's so old school. That's so whatever." And there is a vintage element to what we're doing. There is a hopeless romantic vibe to what we're trying to do, you know? You're so right. This is such a hard place to live. I'm uncomfortable 80% of the time. And it is really challenging and a lot of the artists that I talk to feel the exact same way. And, I think the way of just dealing with that is just realizing that it is hard, but it's still happening. And there are still people who have come here and who are here and who plan to come here who believe in New York the way that more people did. And, who's to say about the future? Who knows? But how lucky am I to be able to be here when there are still people here who resemble, arguably, I'll say it, one of the best parts of New York, which is you can come here and you can try to be anything. You can be an artist, you can be a creative, and you can get some bartending job and pay your bills and make it work. And there might be, 10% the amount of people who are doing that now than there used to be. And that's a bummer. I always wish I was born earlier in time. So, this is another reason why. But, they're still here. And if we can catch them and if we can help them, then that's good enough for me because I think when an artist population leaves a place, that place becomes a shell of what it is. These people build the culture around New York, and the ones who make it help, market New York to people, Broadway, comedy shows, amazing galleries, sculptures, museums, all these people, the ones who make it show you that you can, and the ones who haven't made it yet are who we're talking to. And both people can exist here, and both people still do. I think that's like the only thing I would really want someone to know who is teetering on moving to New York or teetering on New York as a whole is that yes, it's expensive and it's tough and it's really, really hard to live here, but there are still people who believe in it. And as long as that's true, even to a small extent, New York will still remain this kind of magnet that made me want to move here. This was the only place I wanted to be. And there's a reason for that. And that reason still exists. And we're just trying to celebrate that reason.
There's a quote in the third issue. The beauty of this industry, and you mean the service industry, is you never bring it home. But being an artist, you take that everywhere. So on one hand, you have two jobs like your subjects and your readers. You probably have three because you have your creative side as well. So is that your guide as editor-in-chief? Because you have the side hustle is the job, is the one that's paying the bills. But then you have the creativity, which is, of course, not something you can turn on and off. If you're an artist or any kind of creative, you're constantly thinking about it, even if you're, taking an order or whatever. How does that guide you as being that, when you're the editor of the magazine?
I mean, I find myself in a very fun situation where the concept of the magazine that I've created with my friends and the people we feature are reflective of the life that I live. So I don't have a work-life balance, and I don't ever stop thinking about waiting. I feel like I don't know what it's like to be a mother, but I have never thought about something or cared for something more. And I know that's aside from your question, but
It's not actually, because I used to tell, when I was editing magazines, I used to tell people who asked, how do I become an editor? I said, well, the first thing is your antenna can never be off.
right.
You have to keep it on all the time, which is what you just said. So you live and breathe. When you're an editor, you live and breathe it.
I live and breathe it. I live and breathe it. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. I'm always looking around. I'm always thinking about it. And it's another beautiful part about waiting is that waiting's everywhere. It's not just I don't go into some vacuum when I work on the magazine or when I think about it, or I'm not just in some vacuum in my mind. I'm walking around. I'm in a restaurant. I'm in a cafe. I'm watching something on Instagram. I'm looking at all of these people, and you can't help but think like, "Oh my God, could I help you? Could I write about you? Could you come hang out with us? Could you be a part of our community?" Maybe. And it's just like, I mean, it sounds so cheesy and it sounds so dorky, but it's an endless amount of friendships you could make and the people you could talk to. New York is just it's just bubbling with these kinds of people. And so no, my antenna is never off. And as my role as editor in chief, it's just so funny to even say that out loud because like we said, no magazine experience. But it's my job to take these stories that I hear and take these relationships that people have with New York that is similar and different than my own and let an artist's story shine through the current state that they're in. We're not a talent scouting agency. We're not looking for the coolest thing we've ever seen. We're not, and we're not a restaurant guide, like you said. We're not that completely either. We're in the middle. We're about the people. And it's my role as editor in chief to make sure that those people really shine through because we've found that the more you can humanize someone and the more you can show their authentic lives and how they got to where they are and how on earth they're still going. I mean, some of these people are just they've got the most incredible stories, and they've been so determined to be in the city and make it work here that and I guess that's part of, loving what I do so much is that, I just love and I cherish that people share their stories with us. And they don't have to, but they're doing it because of how whatever reasons. And yeah, it's my goal to just make sure that the person and the story and the love of New York comes through. And I think also one more thing here is that in terms of antennas, the antennas for our artists are very similar, like you said. It's hard to turn a creative's antenna off. It's a little easier to turn it off, when you go in and out of a restaurant work or a restaurant job, but most of the people that I talk to say that the restaurant work actually helps them in their artist practice. And whether or not that's just them, really healthily managing their current lifestyle and being able to put a positive spin on the fact that they do have to work in the restaurant world, or if it's just them really realizing that everything is connected here. There's very few things that exist in a vacuum in New York or kind of anywhere, but we won't get into that. And they realize that, I talk to actresses and actors who have landed auditions and know that that is, in large part because they are constantly having to talk and having to project themselves while they talk to a table or they've had to get really comfortable with themselves. We've had painters who have gotten studios because they have become friends with regulars at the cafe that they work at. The antenna turns off, but the connection stays. You know what I mean?
That that brings to mind Wendy Wasserstein, who's a playwright many years ago. She said, I think it was the 80s or 90s. She said restaurants are the new theater, and that's like a different spin on that for sure. So you were getting at it. So how does an issue come together? I mean, you've done 3 of them now. How does it come together, and how do you achieve a balance when you're building the book? Because I mean, on the surface, all of your stories could sound the same.
That's true. They could. So the way that we kind of embark on an edition is we go through a process. Like I said a little bit earlier, I used to spend a lot of time walking around handing out flyers to different restaurants. And we were lucky enough by the second edition to have about 50 to 60 artists in a dashboard wanting to talk to us and wanting to be featured. And so it's my role right at the jump at the beginning of an edition to go through and almost call all of them and talk to them and talk about their experience and look for kind of like the coolest story or, the most it's always best to just choose whoever's most passionate. I mean, that goes back to what I was talking about with our team. The minute I would get on the phone with an artist and they felt like they were really truly here because they loved being here and they loved their art, we would do anything we could to feature them. And so I'll just talk about the third edition because it's our most recent. So I would go through and I called a bunch of different artists. I made sure that we were, spreading our range in terms of diversity across a ton of different, categories to make sure we really show New York, because that's another part of New York. It's so diverse and, visibility is so important. So we would find 6 artists and I would land on 2 satirical essays I was going to write. And once we had that, we kind of have the outside structure of the magazine. We used to separate our artists by stacks. So we used to have features. Those were the longest written. And then we had tall stacks and short stacks, like pancakes in a diner. And those would all be reflective of the amount of word count that they had. So we would separate each artist into one of those categories. We usually had 2 in each. And then I would talk about the satirical essay I was going to write. And then we talk about anything else we needed. And in terms of photography, we have a map in our third edition of everyone and where they are and where they work, which is super cool. It's on our website as well. And so then Elliot would take kind of all of that information and put together this deck that would show the spread of the magazine, what it was going to include, and our timelines, pencils down, layout, editing, timeline, all of that. So everyone on the team knew, okay, I have this amount of time to do my work, and then I'm going to come together with the whole team and we're going to do it all together. And so my job and my kind of role with everything is I then embark on interviews. I sit down with each artist. I have about an hour and a half to a 2-hour interview with them. I learn all about them, and I usually go and see them do something. I'll go see them perform. I'll go see them at their restaurant. I like to see them in the wild, if you say. And I worked with an editor. I have an editor. I'm very lucky to have. I think everyone is lucky that I have an editor. And I would trade drafts back and forth with her and kind of move through all of these articles, satirical essays included. While that's happening, Dylan, our photographer, and I are scheduling photo shoots. So after I've interviewed someone, then a photo shoot is scheduled with them. And they're usually in their restaurant before their shift. And so we would go around, 3 is the golden hour, we call it. And we would go and photograph these artists in their space. And we would, then Dylan would have the footage that he would edit. And then Sarah, our illustrator, would read the first draft of a satirical essay. And I would be kind of drawing out concepts of what I would want to see as a illustration component to the satirical essay. And she would get working on that. And then everyone kind of just like spins around in mayhem for about 3 months. And people have crash outs. We don't think we can do it. We need more time. We're so stressed out. I mean, even personally speaking, and I think for everyone on my team, actually, not only is this new to us in terms of magazine experience, this is new to us in terms of workload. We've never done anything this large as individuals or as a team, ever. I think I wrote 36,000 words last year. And I think the longest essay I wrote in college was at 20 pages. These are large numbers. I think Dylan's done maybe 34 shoots now in a year for waiting. Sarah has done satirical essays for 5. She's just like, everyone is just kind of putting forth insane amounts of work to get this done. And Elliot is laying out the entire edition. Like, come on now, that's crazy. So, we'll kind of all work together. We'll have a read through where everyone will sit down and they'll read my work, give notes, give feedback on what people think, make sure that the stories do sound different, because you're right, they can sound similar, but it's actually not that hard to make them sound different. You just have to honestly tell the story that the artist is telling you. It's not that hard. And what's amazing is that there are so many through lines with loving New York or loving the industry or loving their work and being passionate. Like, all of that is so clear and comes out always, but the reasons and the background are always different. So different every time. So the stories really write themselves in a way. They don't, and they're really hard, but they do at the same time. So anyway, yeah.
So what's the reception been like?
The reception has been, varied, but great as well. We've got our books, our magazines in a bunch of different stores, and, people are reading articles that we're publishing and they're enjoying them. And I think the biggest thing for us is that we really are getting to our artist community, and they are feeling like we are a platform that they can lean on and they can find other people through. And, I think for the reception in terms of our artists, when they read their own story, it's been really touching because remember, these people do not think they're worthy of being in a magazine yet. They are in what they, I guess, would call the middle ground of their artistic career, where they're still working to try to do it full time. And anyone you read about in a magazine almost, has like some type of massive accomplishment, or, they are doing publicity for a big project that they've just done and they are more or less full time. These artists are not. And that's why they're successful in our minds, because they're working and they're doing everything they can to get to that place, or to get to the place they want to get to, and they're refusing to give up in a very hard city. And that is what we think is worthy of telling the story of. And so when they read their stories, it's really amazing. They feel really seen and they feel very, encouraged, and they've said wonderful things back to us about what it's like to hear their story, which they thought wasn't anywhere near worthy of telling yet. And I think that's the biggest thing with waiting right now, is that we just want to tell those stories and give those artists the ability to kind of see themselves back and see each other. And so our audience is still, growing. It's growing really well, and we have so many plans for the year to receive more people in and include more people. But, I think the coolest thing is that anyone I talk to about this, anyone, they are like, "Oh, that's such a good idea. That's a great idea." And I'm like, "I know, right?" And it's just a matter of being able to slowly gain experience and learn how to build this thing well, and how to keep growing and keep going, because it is really hard, and there are challenges every day. I feel like I learn 10 new things I don't know every single day. And the more we learn as a team, the stronger our reception will be, I'm sure of it.
I just think for a magazine like this, servicing a community that is relatively, the proximity between the magazine and the community, let's just say, is really close. That, building out a brand in terms of a media brand that includes all sorts of other things would be almost easier for you, because the people you highlight and the people you work with are, they're multidisciplinary thinkers. They are creatives. And so, the idea of creating a community around this brand feels like a natural.
It is. It really, in a lot of ways, it feels like we're just bottling water. I mean, these people want to hang out with each other, they want to know about each other, and they want to talk about their work. So, yeah, we are a magazine. We publish articles, we tell stories, but we do those through different avenues. We've got video interviews, we've got artists writing their own stories right now that we'll publish. I'm still writing feature stories, and we have events, and we have parties, and we have celebrations of this kind of person all the time. And, we we want to be multifaceted, and we want to, reflect all the different art mediums that are present in New York through waiting. We haven't even scratched the surface of what waiting will end up being, really.
Yeah, it really is in service to the service industry. It's like, again, it seems like a given. I just imagine, I was when I was reading the last issue, I was just imagining, like, how different would this be if it was in another, like LA, where another magnet, where people,
Yep.
creatives show up, and a lot of them have to, work in the service industry for a while before they make it. Um, it would probably be a different magazine, but the relationship that people have to LA is very different from the relationship that people have to New York.
It is. It 100% is. But You're right on the money, Arjun. We think about that all the time. I think about Nashville, I think about LA, I think about London, I think about Berlin, I think about places in Australia. I mean, New York is where to start this, but it is not where it has to end. And, it's a dream. Could you imagine? Like, it would be so cool to have waiting in different cities that also reflect such a celebration of food and art and creative exploration. And those cities are all over the world. I have this kind of fantasy of reading a waiting edition that I can't read because I can't speak the language, because it's into the like, I would love that. I would love that, and I think we can do it, there are artistic people everywhere, but I say it all the time, and people are always asking, "Why New York? Why do you live in New York?" And I don't think I could do what I'm doing anywhere else in the world, and that's
Yeah, I mean, it's still a magnet city. I just hope it remains that for sure.
well, we're
Okay.
working on it. We're trying.
We always end these with the same question. What are 3 magazines or media that you love right now?
All right. 3 magazines or media. Well, one that I have to shout out is Bias Cut. They are another independent magazine that are around the same age as us. They just came out with their 3rd edition, I believe, and it rocks. It's got 3 different covers. It's fantastic. I recommend everyone go check that out. I love Untapped, which is a furniture and kind of architecture magazine ran by Tiffany Zhao. She's incredible. She's amazing. She's a mentor of mine, and she's taught me so much, and I think the magazine is so sleek and well done and well designed, and the stories are wonderful. I love that magazine, and I'm not in the design world very much, and so it's lovely to get to tap into that and read about what's going on all over the world with that. And then I think the last one that I'd love to say, I mean, I love the New Yorker, but that's so basic. But I love the New Yorker. I mean, it's great.
It's basic, but it gets repeated here a lot because it's so good.
Yeah, fine. I'll do that one.
Well, Adele, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Arjun. I just light up when I get to talk about this, so I've had so much fun talking to you. Thank you.
This has been The Full Bleed, a podcast about the future of magazines and the magazines of the future, and a production of Magazeum, LLC. This episode was produced by Patrick Mitchell. The theme music was composed and played by Jason Camelot. If you'd like to comment on this show, send an email to hello@magazeum.co or visit our website at magazeum.co, where you can read transcripts of all of our interviews from all of our podcasts, along with portfolios, archival photos, links, and more. You can also tell us what the mags you miss. Just fill out the form on the website. Once a month, we'll select the name of a lucky person, and they could win some fine swag. Speaking of which, we have a swag shop. My name is Arjun Basu. Thanks for listening.